Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and praise and hold in the light and celebrate those whose journeys are truly making significant differences in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today on People Doing Good for Others. My featured guest is Ms. Amy Samples. She's the assistant principal at North Wilkes Middle School. She's a native of Wilkes County, married to Josh, her high school sweetheart. They are significantly involved in the community, and we're going to today learn about the role of assistant principal in a middle school. So thank you for being with us, and this is going to be a great experience. And good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Mr. York.
What an honor to have you here working with Ms. Heather Freeman. Let's start with that. Tell us about your principal that's preparing you for the next step.
She is a wonderful leader in our school. And I told you before, I feel like when I was chosen to serve under her as her assistant principal, I feel like I won the lottery. Yeah. Because she is what true leadership is all about. She is a humble servant who believes first and foremost in the building up of others. Yeah. And that is definitely what she has done for me over the past 2 years, is hone my skills and allow me to be an individual, but teach me how to be a servant leader. And I can't thank her enough for how she has guided and supported me over the past 2 years.
Amy, I think she told you if you'd come, that she would prepare you for the next step.
She did. She said to me on day one, Amy, my greatest job with you is to prepare you for a principalship of your own. She then immediately put me in a car, the school vehicle, and we drove to children's homes that very first day. And she has, since that moment, continued to remind me of her why, which is also my why. It's the children we get to serve in our North District.
Wow, how about that? Amy Samples, your youth years, tell us about growing up in your community of Rhonda Klingman School. Yes. And East Wilkes.
Right, so I grew up in a little community that we call Shepherd's Crossroads. It's in the Roaring River Township, but I was in Edwards growing up, the daughter of Mike and Carol Edwards, and I have one sister who is April Edwards Cardwell, and we grew up on the Greenhorn Road there in Shepherd's Crossroads. I went to Rhonda Klingman Elementary School, kindergarten through the 8th grade, so that's telling my age, how old I am, but I also went on to East Wilkes High School. I graduated from East Wilkes High School in 1997. While I was there, I was blessed to play 3 sports, volleyball, basketball, and softball. I did meet, when I was at Rhonda Klingman, I met my husband, who became my childhood sweetheart and my high school sweetheart, and this June we'll be married 19 years. Wow. So very thankful for being blessed to grow up here in Wilkes County and be served by wonderful educators in the Wilkes County school system.
Tell me about your mom and dad.
My mom and dad, Mike Edwards and Carol Edwards. My mom grew up and went to North Wilkes High School, Mulberry Elementary to North Wilkes High School. My dad grew up going to Rhonda Klingman Elementary School and then East Wilkes High School. So we're just homegrown Wilkes Countyans, we like to call ourselves. So this is where we are involved and vested. We're rooted here.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about Sue Shue.
So Sue Shue was my 3rd grade teacher. My sister had been blessed to have her for 3rd and 4th grade, and I was so jealous because I wanted to be in Miss Shue's classroom. Growing up, if my sister did it, that's what I wanted to do. And so Sue Shue was my 3rd grade teacher, and during that year, she believed in me like no one had ever believed in me before. I was so important to her, and I thought she loved me best of all of her students. But I have come to find in later years that every child in her classroom felt that way. But I started believing in myself that year in 3rd grade and knew that if Miss Shue could make that difference in other people's lives, then when I grew up, I might could just do the same thing, that I might could make a difference in children's lives. And from a very early age, at 8, I knew that I had a calling on my life and that God would use me in a mighty way to serve Him by serving others. And I can just remember teaching my stuffed animals, teaching my sister, teaching my cousins, anybody that would sit and listen to me teach them, I would sit them down and do that. And I remember just thinking, one day I'm going to make a difference for children in Wilkes County. Wow. And God has provided me with that opportunity, and I can't thank Him enough for that. But Sue Shue definitely was my lighthouse for leading me into education.
And what grade did she teach?
She taught 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
She was my 3rd grade teacher.
Okay. Amy Samples, tell me about meeting your husband and to-be and your mother and father that had one commitment, and it was going to be to have a degree. And tell us about that.
So my husband and I met when I was young. I was probably 10 or 11 when I met him, and I became his official girlfriend when I was 13. So I was in the 8th grade at Rhonda Klingman and dated him all the way through high school, all through our high school years. But he is 1 year older than me, so he had gone on to college when I was still a senior. But that senior year, on Valentine's Day, he proposed to me and asked me to be his wife. We had been dating for 4.5 years, and he had went to my parents and said, "May I marry Amy?" And their stipulation was, "You're welcome to, once she has her bachelor's degree. So she will graduate college before we will fund any kind of wedding ceremony." So then that's what we decided we were going to do, that we were going to be engaged long term and that we would work and go to college and save up our money. So that's what we did. But I decided that if Josh was going to graduate 3 years, in 3 years, then I needed to speed up my track. So I did get my bachelor's degree through Surrey Community College and Lees McRae University. I did do that in 3 years so that I could get married,
so you could get married
when Josh was out of college, and we could get married early.
What a great story. And I'll always remember your mom and dad, this is the rule.
That's right. And so I got to become the first college graduate in my family, in my immediate family. So they were very proud of me and have always pushed education and the importance of that to me. And it's always been something that our family has valued.
Right. How about, back to your mom and dad, and sports. You said you played 3 sports. So tell us about the benefit of teams working together, and you obviously brought a lot of good away from that experience.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm very much an advocate for the whole child, educating them body, spirit, and mind, socially, emotionally. And I feel like athletics gives many of our students opportunities that they might not have outside of that organization. And so as a youth growing up, I began in rec leagues at Rowan River Ruatan Park as about 5 years old, and just continued to play at the Wilkes Rec League there at Memorial Park. Played there for several years and made friendships with people all across the county, and played on teams with folks who went to other elementary, middle schools, and high schools. So I still have friendships today that were created as a youth playing in those sports organizations. And I believe it gives kids, and it gave me, an accountability piece. I had a coach and a team that needed me to be there.
But that meant to go to practice and
to be at practice,
games.
To be at games, to be there on time, to show up and give my best effort. It taught me to depend on other people, because it wasn't just myself out there winning or losing a ball game, whether that was, in my case, volleyball, basketball, or softball. It took all of us, and it taught me, like I said, teamwork, and that others depended on me. So there are lots of valuable lessons that our youth can learn through sports.
Tell us about your sons. I don't think we've mentioned the name.
So we are very blessed with 2 sons. Tate is our 16-year-old, and he is a sophomore at East Wilkes High School. Jace is our 13-year-old, and he is a 7th grader at East Wilkes Middle School. And our boys are very, very active. They play sports. They play basketball and baseball. They travel and play for their school teams. Very active and very healthy, wonderful young men, and we are just so thankful for them to get to be their parents.
Good. And out of your college degree, then you started to teach.
I did.
Where were you?
My very first job was at Rhonda Klingman Elementary School. So I went home to teach and taught with teachers that had taught me, and that was a great honor to be back in their presence as a colleague instead of a student. And again, that was just other individuals who were in my life who built me up to the person that I've gotten to become today. Loved teaching there, taught under Annette Green, hired me in my first teaching position, and I taught 4th grade and 2nd grade while I was at Rhonda Klingman.
Okay.
I left Rhonda Klingman to teach health education for a United Way agency called Community Health Connections, and I taught health education in high schools and in our community for quite some time until I had our first son, and then left Community Health Connections and went to a place called Lifeline Pregnancy Help Center in a private 501c3 organization, and I worked with families in crisis prevention and that organization to help in crisis pregnancies.
How wonderful.
And then I spent some time being a stay-at-home mom. I thank the Lord for that time. It was precious to me, and I worked for our church, Cool Springs, at the time, and did our finance and budgets, payroll, those kinds of things. And you know, Mr. York, as I look back over that time, I didn't understand God's plan and what all was happening in my life at that time, but God knew He would call me to leadership, and that great leaders of schools sometimes they are first of all teachers. I will always be a teacher first and foremost, and that's my passion, and that's why I love to be in education. But also as a school leader, you need to know people skills and HR skills and family connections, community connections, and so I think He was laying the groundwork for what His future plans for me would be. And those jobs gave me experiences that have helped me to be more successful in the role that I get to be in now.
The call into administration, I want you to make sure we get a clear understanding of that, if you will.
So I never intended to do anything but be a teacher, and I don't mean anything but be a teacher. There's no important job to me in education but our teachers.
Right.
They are the most important role. We could have a school without a school administrator. We could not have a school without teachers. And so as a teacher, I felt like this is what God wants me to do. I loved being in the classroom and still greatly miss it terribly. I love when I get to go into classroom and work with children and teachers. But I just began in about 2014, early of that fall, really feeling the tug of God that I have something else for you to do. I have something that I need you to work on for me, to strive for. I need you to serve folks in a different way. And I knew that I wanted to, you know, I kind of have a life's goal that to do all the good for all the people I can and all the places I can for as long as I can.
Sure.
And when my life gets to be over here, I have a better place to go. But I want to make sure that this world that we live in now is a better place because I was in it. And I can do that by serving other people. And I want to serve as many as I possibly can. And in my classroom, I was serving 20, 25, 28 some years. But I knew that in a school leadership position, God would allow me to serve hundreds. 1, 2, I get to serve 537 now. So I could serve more that way. And I could help teachers and build them up so that they could become a passionate, compassionate teacher like I am about education. Because teaching's a hard job. And they need support systems and people who've been there in the trenches and who believe in them. And that's what I wanted to be for teachers and for students and families.
Good. Now, Cool Springs Baptist, that's Rudy Holbrook's church.
That's old Rudy's stomping grounds, that is, yes.
1805, I'll never forget that church.
Yes, sir.
Was built up on that hill.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
A wonderful church there.
You mentioned a word, to be obedient. How about share that with us? I just love that word.
So that's something that hasn't always came easy to me in my life. I am a very strong-willed person. My parents, when I got married, actually showed me a book in their dresser drawer that said, Raising the Strong-Willed Child. And unfortunately, they had had to read that as long as the Word of God. They had read their Bible to raise me, but I do have a very strong will. And so I have worked diligently, and God has really worked and molded me to be obedient. And I still fall short of that sometimes, but in that calling that I felt to school leadership, I knew that I would need to be obedient. We talked a little bit, you and I have in the past, about how I knew I needed to be in school leadership, so I applied for a principal fellowship with the North Carolina Principal Fellowship Program, and thankfully was granted that opportunity. So that meant me taking a 2 years leave of
That's
absence.
scholarship.
It is a merit-based scholarship
Sure.
through the North Carolina legislature. And I took that opportunity, and I knew that I would have a teaching position in Wilkes County schools after that 2 years leave of absence. They would hold that for me. If I could not find an administrative job after my graduation from Western Carolina and my master's in school administration, I could go back into the classroom. And I was always okay with that. When it came time to graduate, Mr. Chad Mann, Dr. Chad Mann now, called and said, Miss Samples, you know, we have a position here. It's back at CBL, or if you would like it, we'd love for you to come teach second grade. I talked with him and said, I'm going to need to pray about that for a few days. I'm just not certain that God would have called me to this point if He wasn't going to provide me a place to lead. Will you call me back, Amy? I said, okay, I will. So I did call him back the next day and said, can I come and sit down and meet with you? Because I knew that I needed to be obedient. God had called me out of the classroom because He was going to provide me a place to lead.
Right.
And so, long story short, principal fellows have to pay back their loan. It's a loan forgiveness program. It's either pay back your money or serve with time.
Right.
So I was praying to serve with time for 4 years. But you have to be able to get that loan forgiveness. You have to prove that you have been turned down for 7 positions in counties in North Carolina. Well, when August came around and it was time for payments to be due to principal fellows, I could only prove a couple of counties, that 2, as a matter of fact, that I had been turned down for a job.
Sure.
I didn't have a job other than I had a teaching position at CBLer. And I went and met with Chad Mann and I said, I know this is hard, but I need you to understand I've got to be obedient, and I'm going to step out on faith. I'm not going to take that second grade teaching position because I still firmly believe God is going to provide for me the leadership position that He's called me to. And he said, you know, Amy, we don't have any jobs posted in Wilkes County. We don't. And I said, I know that. I understand that. But I'm going to step out on faith. And there is a teacher who needs that second grade position, and your students deserve to have a teacher who comes in August and is well prepared to be here.
Right.
And I'm not going to hold you out until August. Take a position somewhere in the state of North Carolina to be an assistant principal and leave you trying to find a teacher at the last minute. Because this was in June. And he said, I admire you and I appreciate you, and let me know how I can help you. And so I called Dr. Wesley Wood, and he also advised me against doing that. And I did resign my position with Wilkes County Schools formatively with a letter of resignation, and spent a summer praying and wondering, God, why have you called me to this if you're not going to provide something for me?
Right.
And so just with days, it was 2 days, honestly, before my payment was due to principal fellows, because I'd not been able to prove that I had been rejected for enough positions. Heather Freeman, I had interviewed for her for the position of assistant principal, and she called on a Friday. My payment was due on a Monday. And she said, I'd be honored if you'd come serve with me here at North Middle. And so that's just how God shows up and moves.
How wonderful.
So being obedient is not about me. It isn't. It's about trusting that God's going to do what He says He's going to do.
Right.
And it can be difficult to be obedient sometimes, but we just have to take that step of faith and trust Him and know that He's going to provide for us, just like He did for me. And I couldn't have been more blessed to be called to North Middle. It was the perfect time and the perfect place with the most perfect people. I serve a staff and a community and students that are like none other in this county.
There's a vitality about your group when they're together.
There absolutely is.
Spiritual.
It is a special, special place.
Very special place.
It is.
With Heather Freeman, you learn to be a servant leader, or working on it. We are all working on it. And you told me about learning to prioritize under Ms. Freeman. Expand that a little bit. So
Ms. Freeman has taught me the epitome of being a servant leader, and that is to always put others first. We talk about reading the book, Leaders Eat Last, but I believe that needs to come in all things that we do. We have to have the priority of others before ourselves. And it's always has to be what's best for children. What are we doing what's best for the kids? But then it's also important to make sure we're doing what's best for our teachers and our staff, and to be able to make sure we're doing what's best for our parents and our community. That's super important. She's taught me so much about being well planned.
Preparation.
That means to plan well.
Yeah.
She's taught me so much about, she is a data and a numbers girl, Miss Freeman is. And she has taught me more in 2 years about how numbers don't lie. I'm very much the feeling side of our commitment. I am, does everybody feel good about what we've done? And she's very much about, yes, everybody feels good, but the numbers prove it's working. And I love that she's taught me that.
You had tremendous success with her, or the North Wilkes Middle family.
Absolutely.
Right.
We have experienced such great successes, and especially with the Leader in Me program.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Our students, they are truly leaders, and our staff are leaders, and we are empowering our parents to become leaders. And I just couldn't be more excited about the things I see going on at North Wilkes Middle School.
And I've enjoyed the 2 days this year and last year of being with the attraction of folks coming from out of state and all, to see how North Wilkes Middle is doing it.
We do. We receive questions or requests, you know, weekly, bi-weekly, of folks who are asking, can I send a group of teachers? Can I send a group of students and teachers to come to visit your school? We're getting ready to implement Leader in Me. We have another group that's coming the week we get back from spring break. I mean, we are just so blessed that people choose to come and see the wonderful things that are going on at North Middle. And listen, it is never about Heather Freeman or Amy Samples. They're coming to see our staff and our students, because that place, I don't want too many people to get wind of this, but that place can run with or without us. It is a seamless ship that runs efficiently because our staff and our students have been empowered to be leaders of themselves and others.
And you have high expectations for people. I can sense
we absolutely
that.
Do.
Moving in, coming into 40, you just say, this is wow, there's a lot of good things happening here.
Yes, there certainly is.
What does assistant principal do? Tell us some things that your role, your responsibility.
Well, we get to do lots of things. So I call them opportunities instead of responsibilities, because every day is my opportunity to serve. I serve with school buses and bus drivers. Right. I love that part of my job. My favorite part of my job is discipline.
And you're there at 7 o'clock.
Yep, we get there at 7. Our bus riders get off the bus at 7:15. And, you know, other than their bus driver, I want myself to be the first face they see at school every morning. I want to be sure to give them a good morning. And so I love to make sure I can ensure who's there and who's not there by the bus riders I see in the mornings. And I do miss seeing my car riders who come in, but I try to make sure to get to speak to them each day too. But buses are important to me. I want to make sure that our kiddos are there safely. So I'm there at 7 and get them off the bus. Coach Henson helps me with that every morning. He's so faithful to be there to help me each morning with them. And then, like I said, discipline is another big part of my job. And I love being able to sit down and have those connecting conversations with my kids. You know, I believe there's no more powerful tool that I have as a school leader than to make connections with people.
Yep.
I need to get to know them personally, and they need to know me, whether that's my students, my teachers, or my parents. I want them to know me, and I want to know them, and I want to know them by name. I want to know something that's important to them, because they matter to me. So even when I'm disciplining, that's sometimes not a good situation to be in, but it's an opportunity that I get every day to help live my legacy and leave a difference in the life of someone else. And I can do that through school discipline. We use the leadership qualities. My custodians are wonderful. I have some of the best in Wilkes County. Mr. Larry Shoemake's our head custodian, and he leads a tight ship around there. It's a clean and happy place at North Middle. Very blessed with our custodians. I also get to do teacher observations. That's another favorite part of my job.
You said half of your time is in the classroom?
Oh, we try to make it at least that. What Ms. Freeman and I do is we divide observations. So she does half of them and I do half of them. And we work together and team on several of them to do summatives and things like that. But we believe firmly in we can help teachers and build them up if we know what's going on in their classrooms. And so we love to be amongst the children and the teachers. That's where we want to be. So doing those observations helps us know what's going on in those classrooms.
Okay. We talk about test scores, and that's an evaluation. How do we?
Yes.
What are some of the things you do to raise test scores?
So,
And you have.
We have. Our test scores are raising. We're very thankful for that. You know, personally, professionally, and as an organization at North Middle, we believe that test scores are very important, and we as an education model, we view that, and we have to have those for accountability. But we also know that that's just one of the many measures of success that we look at for students. But when we look at raising our test scores, the best way to raise a student's test score is to make sure that you're providing them with a teacher who's prepared and ready to educate them to the fullest.
Quality teaching to raise test scores.
Quality teaching with good pedagogy and best practice is the best way to raise test scores. But we do that through making sure that our teachers have made connections with those students, because you know that old saying that it doesn't matter, they don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Right.
And that's true when we firmly practice that at North Middle.
You mentioned, or we talked about athletics and the role model being there and supervision. Tell us how you and Ms. Freeman split that responsibility, because you have children to go see too.
We do. Yes, we absolutely do.
Too.
She does too. Yes, sir. So we divide and conquer on lots and lots of things, and athletics is another thing we do that on. We also work with Travis Stillman, who is our athletic director at North Middle. And when we have an athletic event, like there's one this afternoon, baseball and softball play at home. So she has a very well laid out schedule, and we just divide those games and make sure that one of us are at all of those games, and sometimes both of us will be there. It just depends, because we want to support our students at North Middle and make sure that they know they're important to us, student athletes as well.
Tell me about a conference, a parent or a grandparent or a guardian has a concern. Kind of frame that for us, that we'll learn from an example that you'll set for us.
I want to make sure that parents know how important they are to me, and how much I value them as a member of the team that I expect to be formed for our students. And first and foremost, I want parents to understand that I'm a mom myself. That's my greatest role in life, is to be a mom. When parents come to me, I want them to know that they're going to be heard. And most of the time that's what parents want, is they want to know that I hear them. And so it's a pleasure for me to sit and be able to listen to them and hear their concerns for their child. They have no greater asset than their child, and they're entrusting that child to me. And I don't take that lightly. I take that responsibility. It is something that I'm honored to bear. But I want them to know that when I make a decision and I team with them to make a decision, I'm truly doing what I feel is in the heart's best interest of that child.
And to be an honest listener.
Absolutely.
Is that right? A part of it?
To be honest and to be supportive.
Yeah.
But again, to hold high expectations.
Yeah.
We don't help anyone out when we bless their hearts, Ms. Freeman says all the time. We need to hold them accountable, because people will most of the time rise to the occasion, especially students. And so we have to have honest conversations with parents sometimes. But we love parents and encourage them to be involved in their children's education.
Amy Samples, tell us as we close, coming close to the end, I want to thank Wilkes Communications and RiverStreet and WIFM. This opportunity of being obedient and partnering at North Wilkes Middle School with Mrs. Heather Freeman and your family there. Just thank us for that opportunity that just worked out for you.
It did. I like to say that I chose North Middle. I chose to go there, but Gary, I know that's not true. North Middle was chosen for me. It was the place I needed and the people I needed at the exact time I needed it. So I'm just so blessed and honored that I was chosen to serve there.
So you're answering the call and learning to be more obedient.
Absolutely.
And to keep your servant's heart showing and glowing.
That is right.
How's that?
That is absolutely, you couldn't have said it better.
Thank you for being with us today, and what an honor it is to have you, and I hope you'll come again. Thank you.
Thank you.